The 206th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been. There ever will be.
Eight up freehand, King likes the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good! Off the glass! Oklahoma calls timeout, but the game is over! The game is over! Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma! Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good! They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores!
With 20 seconds left to play, goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. Worthy fired. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hello, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony joining me via telephone. First off, we want to wish you guys a happy Easter. Hope you have a great time with your families celebrating the holidays. We're roughly now 2+ days into the retirement of Roy Williams, and I told you guys that when the time was appropriate for us to talk about where Carolina goes next in terms of finding their next head coach, we'd get on here and have that discussion. And I've talked with Isaac Shade from Sports Illustrated and Adam Lucas from GoHeels.com, both about Roy Williams retiring and where Carolina's going next. And Anthony, we're not going to dive into thank you, Roy Williams, and honoring and paying tribute to him with this episode. That'll be a completely different episode on its own. But I do want to touch on that press conference the other day before we talk about this coaching search and where we think Carolina should go as we head into the next chapter of Carolina basketball. And it was as tough a press conference as I've ever seen in my life, watching him speak and watching people from my favorite team speak. I mean, I remember watching him after we lost the title game in 2016, or after we lost to Duke, at Duke in 2015 when Kennedy Meeks threw the ball out of bounds, or last year when they lost to Clemson, or Tony Romo's retirement speech and stuff like that. And those moments kind of stuck out, and you never forget those. His press conference is something I'll never forget because we, for about an hour and a half, watched a man that we respect like no other, basically act like he failed us, failed the program, failed the family, when in fact all he did was succeed and make the family and the program as proud as it could be, winning 3 national championships in 14 years after the program had won just 3 in the previous 65. I know you had a chance to listen to his press conference as well. What were your takeaways from Roy Williams as he said goodbye to Tar Heel Nation?
It's just heartbreaking to hear a guy that basically thought that he didn't do anything. The program actually may have, in his mind, probably ruined the program, was basically where it feels like he felt like he was at. And he actually brought this program to heights it had never seen before. There's a reason why there's an argument that Roy Williams is the greatest coach in Tar Heel basketball history. Anybody that doesn't think so is just planners, because this guy has had the most success of any coach in Tar Heel history on the court. During his 18 years in Chapel Hill, he won 3 national championships. No other coach in the country has won more than 2 during that time. So he was dominant in his time here. And, I think that talked about it a little bit on the podcast when we announced that he was retiring. Our reaction to that, and we had talked about it, touched on it even a little bit before that. The fact of the matter is that these last couple of years have really worn on him, and he said that in the press conference multiple times. He said that he no longer thinks that he's the right man for the job at Carolina, which I think that Matt Doherty, the former coach of the Tar Heels, the guy that coached under Roy Williams at a time during his time in Kansas, he pretty much put it best. If this job isn't, if he's not the man for the job at Carolina, he's going to be the job at Carolina. And that's pretty much, I think, how everybody should be feeling. You lost a legend. Anybody who's celebrating that is a Carolina fan. Let's just be honest. You're not a Carolina fan. It's just that simple. This guy is revered throughout college basketball as one of the greatest to ever do it. Not only by fellow coaches, including some of the guys in the ACC that he's competed against for years, and that us fans have grown up to hate and want to be year in and year out, but that he has grown up to be friends with during his time in Chapel Hill, but also national media members who have really shown some great support for him, despite many people saying that they didn't respect him for years. You've seen plenty of guys that have come out and said, "Well, this is one of the 3 or 4 greatest coaches to ever coach in college basketball history." And I think a lot of people are still kind of in that mindset that Roy Williams is one of the more underrated coaches to ever coach, and I feel like that's kind of where we're all at. But Roy isn't in that same mindset. And I saw something earlier today. Apparently, inside Carolina, they have a show that they do on WCHL in Chapel Hill. And they were getting into some talks about Roy Williams. C.D. McGrath, his former assistant, came on and was talking on the show. And I didn't get to listen to the clip, so I don't know exactly what was said. But apparently he was asked as to whether or not Roy Williams, despite not having social media, had seen some of the posts that were being posted on social media over the last couple of years. And from what I read from people responding to it after hearing it on WCHL, they basically said that, yes, he had seen those, felt like he was letting the fan base down, and it feels like that's what drove him to this point. So, once again, and I'll reiterate this for years to come, the fan base has nobody to blame but themselves. You can look in the mirror and point at yourself, and it's the reason why Roy Williams is no longer the coach in North Carolina, because you made him feel like he wasn't the guy for the job any longer. And there's nothing else to say about that, but that's pathetic.
The 2 things that I think stood out the most were him saying that he feels like he's no longer the right man for the job, and that he said that, we did okay. And you said it pretty emphatically, you were the most dominant program in the country for your 18 years. You went to 5 Final Fours. You won 3 national championships. You won 9 ACC regular season titles, so that's half of the time you were in the conference. You won it, and for the better part of your time in the ACC, that was the best conference in college basketball. And so you did more than just okay. But I think the thing that's got us all kind of torn is him admitting that he doesn't feel like he's the right man for the job. And that leads us to where we got to go next, which is if Roy Williams, a guy who since he left for Kansas, let's just put it that way, was always the right man for the job. And then he waited 15 years to come back and have the job after he came back home. If he's no longer the right man for the job, who in the crap is? This job isn't just any job. This is the premier job in college basketball. It's probably a top 5 job in college athletics, right up there with the likes of coaching football at Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame. it's that premier of a job in college athletics. I'd argue that in the realm of the basketball world, this is better than probably 2/3 or more jobs in the NBA, just because of what comes with being the head coach at the University of North Carolina. It makes you a public figure, not just on that university, but in the state, and everyone will know you. Once if your title is associated head coach North Carolina. And so I feel like there's just a lot that's got to go into this decision, which will be the biggest decision Bubba Cunningham will ever make in his career in athletics. And, I had Isaac Shade on, and he talked really emphatically and really, really proud of the job that Bubba Cunningham has done. And Adam Lucas has said that during his time at Carolina, what he's done, he guided the program through the NCAA investigation. He got Mac Brown back to Chapel Hill. He's, you've got spring sports that are ranked number one in all, in tennis, soccer, golf, whatever it is. Carolina's number one in it. And at this point, he's been in Chapel Hill for 10 years. He feels like a Tar Heel. We've embraced him. He's a part of the Carolina fabric. With that said, though, none of that pairs in comparison to what he's got to do now, because his legacy as an athletic director depends on what this hire does. If this hire is successful, there's a chance he could surpass Dick Baddour as the greatest AD in the history of Carolina athletics. If this goes poorly, he will most likely be fired, and everything that he did leading up to this point will all be forgotten. And I thought he did a really smart move by addressing the media separately on Thursday after we had Roy Williams' retirement speech, where he addressed how he's going to handle the search. And one thing that I think should give us some confidence is that there's not going to be a search firm committee. And I've always found it pretty funny that in college athletics, where you have ADs and all those people, they go hire an outside source to find their next coach for whatever sport it is. It's just going to be him and Chancellor Guskowitz making this decision, so we should feel pretty confident in his leadership. He also detailed that this is going to be a very swift and very quick decision. We're recording now on Saturday night. It's Final Four Saturday. It'll be available for you guys on Easter morning. I've told you, and we in conversations, I think the latest we have a decision is Wednesday, because I feel like he feels like we got to get this done quickly. That way the program can kind of start moving forward. And as hard as it is, because you've just lost a legend and an icon, you got to press on and you got to move forward. Did you happen to have a chance to listen to his media availability on Thursday after the Roy Williams retirement speech?
I did not, but I saw the majority of the quotes that came out. And, I wasn't really shocked by any of it. I think, the moving quickly thing doesn't shock us at all, because they moved quickly when they hired Mac Brown as the team's football coach. I think this is one that is definitely going to take a little bit more thought, but I think that you kind of have no choice in the landscape of college basketball right now, because as we've seen over the last couple of days, you've already seen some major targets that have made decisions, or I should say major names that a lot of Tar Heel fans were hoping they would target that have already made their decisions. So guys that are in the transfer portal, this isn't like recruiting, where guys are going to take months, take visits, stuff like that to find the place they want to go. No, these guys are going to enter the transfer portal, and usually within about 2 weeks, they're going to find their destination. So in order to be able to be competitive for some of these big-name guys that maybe haven't even entered the transfer portal yet, but that you're going to need to be able to rebuild a roster that has lost a lot of transfers already and could be looking at the possibility of losing more. I think they feel like they've got to get that person in pretty soon here. Do your due diligence, find the person that you want, but at the same time, you've got to do it with a little bit of
one thing that he mentioned that is not sitting well with me as a podcast host, as like a longtime Carolina fan and many other Tar Heel fans, is that there is the chance and the possibility that the next head coach could have zero ties or any correlation to North Carolina in any way or capacity. I think for the longest time we've always thought